Hello everyone, my name is Liz Hickok and I am one of the librarians here at SJCC, San Jose City College. Here at the library we teach a course called Digital Literacy, and part of digital literacy is generative AI literacy. And so today I am here to talk to you about AI literacy, use and misuse in education. Our agenda today, we're going to be going over some student learning outcomes, including identifying and applying key digital literacy concepts, including fact-checking, ethical information use, and data privacy. We're going to talk about what generative AI is and what it isn't, what it tells us and what it leaves out, and what you can and can't do when working on your college projects. First, we're going to start off just with a general introduction because you've probably heard of generative AI. A lot of people know about ChatGPT, for example, but not everyone knows how it works or what it is exactly. So generative AI is an artificial intelligence technology that generates an output. And that's the simplest definition. So it could create a text, it could create images, or it could actually create an audio file. So there have been some cases in which generative AI has been used, for example, in commercial applications like for answering phone calls at a phone center for customer service. And here we have an example of an image that was generated by AI. This is a snapshot of an article that was taken out of one of our EBSCO databases about a hoax in which generative AI created an image of Pope Francis in a white puffer jacket. So it created quite a stir, and so you can read more about that. And you can see that what AI has done is it has taken two different things, an image of a puffer jacket and an image of a person, and it has put it together to create something new. So AI is a discipline of computer science, right? It does not have a concept of language or syntax rules. It isn't generating meaning or creating meaning. It really is code that is following probability, searching for instances of things, for example, images of puffer jackets, and finding those things that already exist in its training set, and then generating something similar. So chatbots, including ChatGPT, are computer programs which arrange word patterns. They do not have any knowledge, for example, of the Oxford comma rule. They're generating a comma before the and, for example, because a lot of other people put a comma before the end, not because they understand a rule. Right? So at its very basic, generative AI is a computer program that generates outputs that are similar to the outputs that it has been trained on. And it is trained on the free open internet. So I'm not here today to tell you everything on the internet is bad, right? NASA is on the internet. There's some great quality information on the internet. It's just that it takes a lot of work to find it, right? Because not everything on the internet is so great. This is what I call the quality continuum on the internet. There's a huge range of information and its reliability on the open and free internet. And that ranges from NASA and the library at one end of the informative spectrum. And it goes into some maybe not so relevant information, more commercial information. And in the really bad side of things, there's misinformation, opinions, persuasion, and you get really dark into deep fakes and scams, where some of the information that's out there is deceptive and it is intentionally deceptive, whereas some of it is maybe just someone's opinion, but it's not necessarily intended to be misinformation, but that still could be part of the training set for a computer program that is generating outputs such as ChatGPT or other generative AI platforms. So the big problem with that is that we have to realize what AI is doing. It is that it is mixing all of that stuff up. It's taking the quality information and potentially misinformation or misinformed or deceptive information, and it's mixing it all up and it's baking it into something new, just like a pie, and it's giving you that pie, right? And there have been cases where it has generated biased, faulty, or offensive information. ChatGPT does have a service center. It's come out where they are actually paying people to pull out that content so that it is not actually delivering really offensive information to folks as part of its service. And sometimes it will actually tell you if it can or can't do something. Like, for example, it's trained on a snapshot of the internet, so it can't necessarily take live hotel information or flight information and function as a travel agent because it's taken a snapshot, not the live internet. Now, there are some exceptions to that. There are different companies working on updates, and really, the more we demand this kind of thing, it's possible the more that we will see it. There are, Bing, Bard, there are lots of different platforms that are working on updates where we might start to see advancements of using the open and live internet. But right now, ChatGPT, for example, if you jump on there, it's most likely going to be taking a snapshot of the internet. And when it can't find something in that data set that it's been trained on, it does sometimes make things up. This is called hallucinations. And it takes those hallucinations that it made up and the misinformation and the regular information and creates something new. And when you ask it to give you back the sugar, the flour, the cherries, it can't always do that. Right? So that's part of the problem, is that it can't always tell us the sources. It can sometimes, and it will. But one of your best practices is going to be to always check those sources, because it does also sometimes generate fake citations. And those fake citations can be very good because it will look like a real article. It will be from someone in that field who is an expert, right? So you need to be aware of its limitations and what it's telling you and what it's not telling you. My niece once said to it, to my Google Assistant, "I love you. Will you marry me?" And the Google Assistant said, "Well, I'm not capable of that kind of intimacy, but I think you're really lovely." Right? So some of the AIs do have some self-knowledge or awareness or of its limitations built in, and it can tell you when it can and can't do something, but sometimes it doesn't, and that's the problem, right? It doesn't understand or interpret or generate meaning. It is not sentient, and it is not an author. There have been some court cases, and there have been attempts for people to register the content that is generated by AI with the Library of Congress, and it is not a recognized author. It cannot be recognized as an author by the Library of Congress, so it is not considered a source. What that means for education, what do you think? What do you think that means? Let's take a minute. So we can use it as a tool. That's number one, right? You can use it to list things, list the experts in this field on this topic, list the top 5 research articles on this topic. If you find an article that looks pretty interesting, but it's really long and you're not sure if it's the right article for you, you can ask it to summarize this article for you and tell you what this article is about before you go to the trouble of dissecting it. And the number one way that even MLA tells us to use generative AI is as a collaborator. So you're working with this tool. It's sort of a digital assistant or a digital peer, right? You want to treat it as an equal and not a professional, not a professor. You can't take its word for gospel, right? Because it can make up what it doesn't know. So just like any peer in your class, if you sat down for a group project to get feedback from a peer in your class, your peer may give you some really great ideas, but you have to use your critical thinking skills and knowledge to decide if you're going to take that advice and make those changes. because it's really up to you. You are the author of the paper, and you can treat AI like a peer collaborator, as if you were giving them a task or working on something together. But ultimately, you really are responsible for what you turn in. And if you do use that peer collaboration, you must cite the AI that you used as a collaborator. And there are now guidance from the MLA and other general citation standards for how to cite AI if you do use it in your academic work. What you definitely don't want to do, of course, is copy and paste directly in as if it's something that you wrote. You want to make sure that you cite it if you use it in any way. Also want to be really careful that you protect your privacy. Don't ever feed something into AI that has your private, medical, or personal information in it. You may be asked to write a narrative essay, for example, with some personal stories. That's the kind of thing you don't really want to feed into AI. And finally, it is aware if you ask it if it's okay for you to do these things, it is aware that copy and paste is a violation of academic integrity. So you always want to check with your instructor regarding what you can and can't do before you start your assignment. And finally, use the library resources instead. Of course, I'm going to plug the library. We would love to come in and help you with your work anytime. And we have over 40 paid subscription databases for you to do your research in reliable sources. So we'll hope to see you here soon. I hope that's been helpful, and I look forward to talking with you more about your projects and your progress and all of your academic success here at SJCC. Bye-bye.